The Tao of Warren Buffett, Warren Buffett's Words of Wisdom, Quotations and Interpretations to Help You to Billionaire Wealth and Enlightened Business Management, by Mary Buffett and David Clark. Narrated by Anna Fields. Copyright 2006 by Mary Buffett and David Clark. This audiobook is published by arrangement with Scribner Books, an imprint of Simon & Schuster Incorporated, and was produced in the year 2006 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Introduction. For 12 years, from 1981 to 1993, I was the daughter-in-law of Warren Buffett, the world's most successful investor and now its greatest philanthropist. Shortly after I married Warren's son Peter, and long before most of the world outside Wall Street had ever heard of Warren, I visited their family home in Omaha. While there, I met a small group of devoted students of the master investor's wisdom who referred to themselves as Buffettologists. One of the Buffettologists, David Clark, kept notebooks filled with Warren's wisdom on investing, which were meticulous and endlessly fascinating to read. David's notebooks were the foundation upon which he and I later shaped the best-selling investment books Buffettology, the Buffettology Workbook, and the New Buffettology, now published in 10 languages, including Chinese and Russian. Out of all of David's notebooks, my favorite was filled with many of Warren's most profound aphorisms, which were great fun to read because they had a way of really making you think. As I was later to discover, to Buffettologists, these aphorisms were akin to the teachings of a Taoist master, in that the more the student contemplates them, the more they reveal. As time progressed, I, too, started to collect aphorisms that Warren would say to us in private family moments and at social gatherings that included many business luminaries. At these gatherings, Warren would sometimes take the floor and answer questions in the manner of a master teacher, rewarding the student's patience with his great wisdom. And the more I heard Warren speak, the more I learned, not only about investing, but about business and life. His aphorisms have a way of staying with you. I often find myself quoting them to make a point, or thinking back on them to warn myself not to make a mistake, such as getting swept away in the wild enthusiasm of a bull market. They have even helped teach me what kinds of companies I should focus on and when is the best time to invest in them. Keeping within the Taoist-like spirit that surrounds Warren's teachings, David and I thought that it would be fun to create the Tao of Warren Buffett, filling it with what we think are Warren's most enlightening aphorisms on investing, business management, choosing a career, and pursuing a successful life. These words have been true friends to us over the years as we've navigated our ways through life, business, and the search for the winning investment. We have incorporated our Buffettologists' interpretations to help provide context and to open the door for further exploration into the aphorisms' more hidden and subtle meanings. It is my hope that this book will enrich your world by making it a more profitable and enjoyable place to invest, work, and live. Mary Buffett, July 2006. Getting and Staying Rich. Number 1. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. The great secret to getting rich is getting your money to compound for you, and the larger sum you start with, all the better. As an example, $100,000 compounding at 15% for 20 years will grow to $1,636,653 in year 20, which gives you a profit of $1,536,653. But let's say you lost $90,000 of your initial capital before you even started and could only invest $10,000. Your investment would then only grow to $163,665 in year 20 for a profit of $153,665. This is a much smaller number. The larger the amount of money you lose, the greater the impact on your ability to earn money in the future. That is something that Warren has never forgotten. It is also the reason why he drove an old VW Beetle long after he was a multimillionaire. Number 2. I made my first investment at age 11. I was wasting my life up until then. It is good to find one's calling early in life, and in the field of investing, it allows for unparalleled opportunities for the magic of compounding sums of money to work. The time to gamble is not when one is young, when there is so much time ahead to profit from wise decisions. The stock that Warren bought when he was 11 was in an oil company called City Services. He bought 3 shares at $38, only to watch it sink to $27. He sweated it out, and after it recovered, sold it at $40 a share. Shortly thereafter, it soared to $200 a share, and he learned his first lesson in investment: patience. Good things do come to those who wait, provided you pick the right stock. Number 3. Never be afraid to ask for too much when selling, or offer too little when buying. Warren understands that people fear embarrassment if they ask too high a price when selling or offer too low a price when buying. Nobody wants to be seen as greedy or cheap. Simply stated, in the world of business, how much money you get from a sale or how much you have to pay when making a purchase determines whether you make or lose money and how rich you ultimately become. Once negotiations begin, you can come down in your selling price or up in your buying price. But it's impossible to do the opposite. Warren has walked from many a deal because it failed to meet his price criteria. Perhaps the most famous example was his Capital Cities purchase of ABC. Warren wanted a larger share of the company for his money than Capital Cities was willing to part with, so he walked from the deal. The next day, Capital Cities caved in and gave him the deal he wanted. Ask and you might just receive. But if you don't ask... Number 4. You can't make a good deal with a bad person. A bad person is a bad person, and a bad person will never make you a good deal. The world is filled with enough good and honest people that doing business with the dishonest ones is pure foolishness. If you even have to ask yourself the question, do I trust this person? You should immediately leave the negotiating table and look for more honest company with whom to do business. You don't want to doubt that your parachute will open when you are about to jump out of a plane, and you don't want to doubt the integrity of the person with whom you are about to jump into business. If you can't trust them now, you won't be able to trust them later, so why trust them at all? Warren had this lesson driven home when he was sitting on the board of directors of Salomon Brothers. Against Warren's advice, Salomon's investment bankers continued to do business with media mogul Robert Maxwell, whose finances were so precarious that his nickname was the Bouncing Check. After Maxwell's untimely demise, Salomon found itself in a big mess trying to recover its money. The rule is simple. People with integrity are predisposed to perform. People without integrity are predisposed not to perform. It is best not to get the two confused. Number 5. The great personal fortunes in this country weren't built on a portfolio of 50 companies. They were built by someone who identified one wonderful business. If you do a survey of the super-rich families in America, you will find that almost without exception, their fortunes were built on one exceptional business. The Hearst family made their money in publishing, the Walton family in retailing, the Wrigley family in chewing gum, the Mars family in candy, the Gates family in software, and the Coors and Bush families in brewing. The list goes on, and almost without exception, any time they strayed from that wonderful business that made them so amazingly rich, they ended up losing money, as when Coca-Cola got into the movie business. The key to Warren's success is that he has been able to identify exactly what the economic characteristics of a wonderful business are. A business that has a durable competitive advantage that owns a piece of the consumer's mind. When you think of gum, you think of Wrigley. When you think of a discount store, you think of Walmart. And when you think of a cold beer, you think of Coors or Budweiser. This elevated position creates their economic power. Warren has learned that sometimes the short-sighted nature of the stock market grossly undervalues these wonderful businesses, and when it does, he steps up to the plate and buys as many shares as he can. Warren's company, Berkshire Hathaway, is a collection of some of the finest businesses in America, all of which are super profitable and were bought when Wall Street was ignoring them. Number 6. It is impossible to unsign a contract, so do all your thinking before you sign. Warren has learned that once you sign, the deal is done. You can't go back and rethink whether it was a good deal or a bad one. So do all your thinking before you sign. This is easier said than done, for once that paper is shoved under your nose, sound reasoning often flies out the window in the name of getting the deal done. Before signing a contract, imagine all the things that could go wrong, because they often do go wrong. The road of good intentions is paved with what were foreseeable troubles. Thinking long and hard before you take the leap will save you from having to think long and hard about all the trouble you just signed on for. Warren forgot to put a non-compete clause in his contract with 89-year-old Rose Blumkin when he bought her Omaha-based Nebraska Furniture Mart. A few years later, Mrs. B got angry at the way things were being done at the store, so she quit and started up a new store across the street, stealing tons of business from NFM. After a few years of suffering the stiff competition, Warren caved in and agreed to buy her new store for a cool $5 million. The second time around, he had her sign a non-compete agreement, and it is lucky for him that he did, since she continued on in the business until she was 103. Number 7. It is easier to stay out of trouble than it is to get out of trouble. It is far easier to avoid the temptation of breaking the law to make easy money than it is to deal with the consequences if you get caught. To stay out of trouble, just do the right thing at the right time. To get out of trouble, you need a lot of money and a lot of legal talent, and even then you may end up serving a lot of time. This lesson was driven home when Warren nearly lost his entire $700 million investment in the Wall Street firm of Salomon Brothers. The Federal Reserve Bank came within inches of shutting down the entire firm for its illegal bond trading activities, which were committed by a trader trying to make a quick buck. What did it cost to get out of trouble? The jobs of several of the firm's top traders, the jobs of its chairman and CEO, and millions in legal fees, fines, lawsuits, and lost business. It would have been a lot easier and far more profitable to have stayed out of trouble from the start. Number 8. You should invest like a Catholic marries, for life. Warren knows that if you view an investment decision from the perspective that you will never be able to undo it, you'll be certain to do your homework before taking the plunge. You wouldn't jump into a marriage without doing your research, dating, and discussing it with your advisors, your pals at the pub, and thinking long and hard about it. Would you? Nor should you jump into an investment without knowing a lot about the company and making sure you understand it. But it is the life part that really makes the money. Consider this. In 1973, Warren invested $11 million in the Washington Post Company, and he remains married to this investment even to this day, and over the 33 years he has held on to it, it has grown to be worth $1.5 billion. The conviction to stay the course can bring heavenly rewards, as long as you have chosen the right one to begin with. Number 9. Wall Street is the only place that people ride to in a Rolls-Royce to get advice from those who take the subway. Warren has always thought it strange that highly successful and intelligent business people who have spent lifetimes making huge sums of money will take investment advice from stockbrokers too poor to take their own advice. And if their advice is so great, why aren't they all rich? Maybe it's because they don't get rich off their advice, but off charging you commissions. One should beware of people who need to use your money to make you rich, especially when the more things they sell you means the more money they will make. More often than not, their agenda is to use your money to make themselves rich. And if they lose your money, well, they just go out and find someone else to sell their advice to. Warren feels so strongly about where Wall Street's true loyalties lie that he refuses to even look at the business projections that its analysts put together, because regardless of the nature of the business, the projections are always way too rosy. Number 10. Happiness does not buy you money. Warren never confused being rich with happiness. We're talking about a guy who still hangs out with the same people he did in high school and still lives in the same neighborhood in which he grew up. Money hasn't changed who he is on a fundamental level. When asked by college students to define success, he has said it is being loved by the people you hope love you. You can be the richest man in the world, but without the love of family and friends, you would also be the poorest. Number 11. It takes 20 years to build a reputation, and 5 minutes to lose it. If you think about that, you will do things differently. One foolish act and the bad press that goes with it can instantly destroy a good reputation that has taken a lifetime to build. It's best not to do something that you know is wrong, because if you are caught, the price you pay may be more than you can afford. This is a Buffett credo that he whispered into the ears of his children from the time they were tots. When the accounting scandal came down with insurance giant AIG, Buffett told his managers, "The current investigation of the insurance industry underscores the imperative of the message that I regularly send to you in my biannual memo. Berkshire can afford to lose money, even lots of money. It can't afford to lose reputation, even a shred of reputation. And in the long run, we will have whatever reputation we deserve. There is plenty of money to be made in the center of the court. There is no need to play around the edges. Wall Street is littered with fallen giants who let greed get in the way of good judgment and failed to heed this advice." Number 12. The market, like the Lord, helps those who help themselves. But unlike the Lord, the market does not forgive those who know not what they do. The stock market is there to make you rich if you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, it will show no mercy in making you poor. Ignorance, when mixed with greed, is the stuff financial disasters are made of. In 1969, at the high end of the 60s bull market, Warren thought stocks were so overpriced that he got out of the market completely. By 1973 to 74, the stock market had completely reversed itself, and stocks were selling at bargain prices. Warren bought them up with the appetite of, as he said, a sex-starved man in the middle of a harem filled with beautiful women. Many of those beauties went on to help make him a billionaire. As for those investors who stayed in the market after Warren left in 1969, many of them lost their shirts when it crashed in 73-74, and getting back in became impossible. You need money to buy stocks. It really does help if you know what you are doing. Number 13. I don't try to jump over 7-foot bars. I look around for 1-foot bars that I can step over. Warren isn't shooting for the stars. He isn't trying to hit home runs on every pitch. He is waiting for the perfect pitch and is staying with the sure thing. Companies with products that don't have to change. Businesses that he knows will still be around in 20 years, selling now at a price that would make business sense even if he were buying the whole company. Lucky for him that the short-term focus of the stock market often neglects the long-term economics of a business, which means the stock market will often misprice a great business. He keeps it simple and leaves all the fortune-telling and complex investment strategies to the other guys on Wall Street. In the stock market crash of 1973 to 74, you could buy Ogilvy and Mather, one of the strongest advertising agencies in the world, for $4 a share against per-share earnings of 76 cents, which equated to a P/E of 5. Warren bought a ton of it during the crash and cashed out many years later after an annual rate of return of better than 20%. Some investments are just that simple. Number 14. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. This is Warren quoting the English philosopher Bertrand Russell, because his words so aptly describe the insidious nature of bad business habits that don't become apparent until it is too late, such as cost-cutting after your business is in trouble, which should have been done long before you even got to the doorsteps of danger. The business that becomes bloated with unnecessary expenses in times of plenty is the business that will sink when things turn for the worse. This propensity to delude oneself also tells you a lot about the management that let the business become bloated with expenses in the first place. It is best to consciously check where all your habits are taking you long before you get there. If you don't like the direction in which you are headed, the time to change course is before you find your ship sinking in a sea of troubles. This is what happened to Warren with the Benjamin Graham-inspired investment strategy of buying bargain stocks that were selling below book value regardless of the nature of the company's long-term economics. This was something Warren was able to do with great success during the 1950s and early 1960s. But he stayed with this approach long after it wasn't viable anymore. The chains of habit were too light to be felt. When he finally woke up in the late 1970s to the fact that the Graham bargain ride was over, he shifted over to a strategy of buying exceptional businesses at reasonable prices and then holding them for long periods, thereby letting the business grow in value. With the old strategy, he made millions, but with the new one, he made billions. Number 15. Marrying for money is probably a bad idea under any circumstances, but it is absolutely nuts if you are already rich. The wise know that if you marry for money, you will earn every penny of it. So if you are already rich, why on earth would you want to work that hard? It is easy to marry for love and make the money later. It is what Warren did with his wife, Susie. They found love, and then they went out and made a fortune. Besides, the couple that makes money together is often the couple that stays together. And if they don't stay together, at least they have a ton of money to fight over. Warren is silent on the wisdom of divorce. Number 16. It is not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results. As an investor, you don't have to try to get rich overnight to eventually get rich. Warren is shooting for a 20% annual rate of return, not a 200% annual rate of return. Invest $100,000 for 20 years at 20% a year, and you end up with $3.8 million. Hold it for 30 years and you end up with $23.7 million. You win with the running game, not the long bomb. With a world trying to get an annual return of 100%, a lot of mistakes are being made regarding long-term business economics that make getting a 20% annual return pretty easy. Number 17. You should look at stocks as small pieces of a business. Sometimes when people invest, they forget that they are actually buying a fractional interest in a business. Warren likes to look at stocks as owning a small piece of a business. This way he can judge whether he is paying too much for the business. He multiplies the stock price by the number of shares outstanding, then asks himself whether this would be a good deal or a bad deal if he were buying the whole business. If the price is too rich to be buying the whole business, then it is too rich to be buying even a single share. This thought alone can stop you from foolishly getting caught in the speculative frenzy that often goes with a bull market, for seldom do Wall Street darlings and other fashionable securities sell at prices at which it would make sense to buy the whole business. Number 18. My idea of a group decision is to look in the mirror. Warren is not one to seek affirmation of his ideas from others, because so many of his ideas are the opposite of what the herd is thinking. To make big money in the investment world, you have to learn to think independently. To think independently, you need to be comfortable standing alone. Warren has a history of standing alone that dates back to the early days of his investment career. He chose to live in Omaha instead of New York City because there was less influence from Wall Street. He bought into Berkshire Hathaway when no one wanted it. He bought into American Express when no one wanted it. He bought into the Washington Post Company when no one wanted it. He bought into General Foods when no one wanted it. He bought into RJR Tobacco when no one wanted it. He bought into Geico when no one wanted it. He bought the bonds of the Washington Public Power Supply System when no one wanted them, and he bought into junk bonds when no one wanted them. Some of these investments he still owns. Some of them he sold after holding them a number of years, but on each and every one of them he made a fortune. If he had taken a vote of confidence from anyone on Wall Street, he would have missed the boat on all these great investments. Number 19. If I can't make money in a $5 trillion U.S. market, It may be a little bit of wishful thinking to think that all I have to do is get a few thousand miles offshore and I'll start showing my stuff. The odd thing about this quote is that 10 years later, Warren did go offshore to show his stuff. In 2003, he bought around $500 million worth of PetroChina, an oil company that is 90% owned by the Chinese government, which means, as Warren jokingly remarked, "Between the two of us, we control the company." PetroChina is the fourth most profitable oil company in the world. It produces as much crude as Exxon, and Warren bought it at 1/3 the valuation of Western oil companies. In case you are wondering, it is up 400% since then. And if that's not showing your stuff, I don't know what is. Number 20. You should invest in a business that even a fool can run, because someday a fool will. There are businesses with great underlying economics and businesses with poor underlying economics. You want to invest in companies with great underlying economics because it is hard to damage these kinds of businesses. Companies in which Warren has invested, such as Coca-Cola, Budweiser, Walmart, Wrigley's, Hershey, and H&R Block, are almost dumb-proof. You know you're going to make money with these businesses even if a fool becomes CEO. But if you have to worry about a fool running the business, then maybe it isn't such a great business, and maybe you shouldn't be in it. Number 21. With each investment you make, you should have the courage and the conviction to place at least 10% of your net worth in that stock. Conviction is based on what you know will happen. Faith is based on what you hope will happen. To make money in the investment game, you need to have conviction, which means that you need to know what you are doing. A surefire way to achieve Warren's level of conviction is to invest significant amounts of money. This causes you to focus and make certain that you have done your homework before you make your investment. But if your investment strategy is based on faith, then you really haven't a prayer. Number 22. Money, to some extent, sometimes lets you be in more interesting environments, but it can't change how many people love you or how healthy you are. The truth is that excessively large amounts of money can actually create a great deal of misery in your life. Your children won't work because they think they're going to inherit a fortune, which means that they never develop any of the self-esteem that work creates, which means that they end up being bitter and spending their time wishing you an early demise. If you are insanely rich, you may end up being surrounded by a bunch of sycophants who will fill your life with lies to stoke your illusions of grandeur till you look like a fool to the rest of the world. And instead of doing adventurous things with your money in life, you end up spending all your time guarding your wealth from your servants, lawyers, accountants, and so-called money managers, all of whom will assist you in making your money theirs. Warren believes that children who inherit great wealth tend to do nothing with their lives, nor does he believe that it is good for society if there is an upper class created by inherited wealth. He believes that a country prospers better if society is a meritocracy, with people earning what they get. For this reason, he donated the $32 billion fortune he made from investing to charity, so that it would go back to help the very society that created it. Let this noble thought find a place in the hearts of all who make their fortunes in the world. Business. Number 23. Anything that can't go on forever will end. A stock price that is quickly rising will stop rising when the economic reality of the business finally sets in. It might seem as if it can go on forever, but if the business fails to perform up to the expectations that are driving the rising price, the company's shares will peak and then drop like a brick. Most businesses that are doing well now will, at some future point, do poorly. Things change. It is only a matter of time. Buggy whips were at one time a great business in America. Video players were once the rage. Selling and fixing typewriters, a necessary and intricate part of the commercial equation. Now they are just things of the past, with no economic promise whatsoever. Things do end, which is why you not only have to keep your eye on the ball, but also on the road ahead. Several times Warren has invested in businesses that either came to an end or saw a radical decline under his stewardship. The most notable were Blue Chip Stamps, which all but vanished, and World Book Encyclopedia, which is now vanishing, each of which lost out to a changing business environment that the company was powerless to make money in. Even a genius can misread the road ahead. Number 24. When management...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?